It's wonderful to have you here. I understand we have a great number of you globally. So wherever you are in the world, I hope first of all that you are safe and well, because these are very different and strange times for us with COVID-19. And I want to thank you for joining. And I hope at the end of this session that you have tools that you can use and skills that you can keep. So let's move on to the agenda. And I've put the picture of the world here, not only to establish that that's where we all are this morning, but because agendas are what I think of as something global. Because when we form an agenda, we are creating it for everyone who is involved. Therefore, we're going to take a look at the elevator pitch, the ask when things get challenging. Then you're all working with volunteers, but how do we mobilize and inspire them? Then most of us at some stage in our presenting careers will handle adversaries. And we know that that can be tough, it can feel threatening at times, and we can feel our confidence slipping away. Therefore, I want to see where I can help you to maintain strength and confidence. We'll also talk about the very important topic of inclusivity. And then just in case you think I've forgotten it, I haven't, we'll close after we've explored all the various points with some presentation skills. Sophia and Devon Zingler, to whom I'm very grateful, both of them, they're marvelous women and young women in my eyes, and very, very efficient and professional. They're going to handle your questions in the chat box. I just want to get a thumbs up or a nod from Sophia that I'm saying that correctly. Great. And the plan is, as you know, when you registered, that this will go for 2 hours. However, if we sense that we've covered everything, the worst thing I can do is bore you to death. The best thing I can do is make sure that we meet your needs in the time allotted. And if we've met them before the 2 hours, then we'll possibly conclude. I want to be sure that you know that I know how proficient, professional, and fabulous you are when it comes to leadership. I've been perusing the YPLP website, and I'm just so impressed with what I've learned about you and learned about with your mission. And I know that you're all doing marvelous work wherever you are, so I congratulate you for that. When we have strong youth, we have a strong future. And those of us who are older become very overwhelmed and excited about the fact of what youth is able to do. So thank you for your work. So first, let's go to the elevator pitch. Now, a lot of you will have heard of the elevator pitch, and others of you, or even those who know, may be wondering, why is it called an elevator pitch? Well, the idea was started in the professional world in that if you stepped into an elevator on the ground or the first floor, whatever you call the first one, wherever you come from, and you were riding with others, that by the time you reached your destination, now, obviously not the second floor, but if you were riding with them and they said, what do? You would be able to tell them in the time before you reached the final floor and the doors opened and those people departed. So in other words, short and succinct and to the point. And so that's what we're covering. Now, many of you will already have elevator pitches, I'm quite sure. But this is to assist you in case you haven't, and I'm also wanting you to embark on an exercise during this. The reason I'm pausing is not because my brain has gone blank. It's because when a slide goes up, no one is listening to the speaker, they are reading the slide. So I always recommend when you are running slideshows that you pause when you change a slide, because it makes it much more efficient and it just keeps you all on the same track. So if you see me doing that, it's because I'm giving you time to read. However, I've endeavored to keep the bullets very simple and straightforward. So the elevator pitch is that opportunity to market yourself. In other words, to sell yourself, a word that not all of us like, but that is what you're doing. When you belong to a powerful organization or lead a company, you do have to sell it on a daily basis. So this is all about marketing. Now, the reason I've suggested such a short time is we know in the world today that the time frame that people have to listen is getting shorter and shorter. We're all occupied with our phones, with our electronic devices. We move very rapidly. So being able to share what you do and how you will benefit the listener or the listener's organization is extremely important, as is getting to the point. Now, I'm going to reach out to those of you on this call who consider yourself female. A tendency that we have is to take a long time to get to the point. And what can often happen in boardrooms, in meeting rooms, in any kind of communication exchange is that we ramble. You may say I'm doing a bit of that now, but I'm allowed because I'm running this workshop. So, and teaching requires us to repeat things. Most of us who are teachers understand that. So getting to the point quickly and including benefits means that the person hears exactly who you are, what you are selling very, very quickly, and know what you are wanting to achieve as your final result. Right? Now, I'm going to give you an example of how I could ramble, and then I'm going to show you a slide where I've got my elevator pitch for the examples. So I'm imagining that one of you has just asked me, so Jenny, what do you do? And I could do this, which is incorrect. Well, I'm a speech coach. Now, that doesn't mean I'm a speech therapist because I don't work with people with any speech impediments. I work with people who have to make a lot of speeches. And so what I do is I go into their organizations and their companies and I help them to present successfully. And I do this in several kinds of different ways. And you can see what's happening. My head is bouncing. I'm rambling on. I'm going to a lot of different directions. So let me see what you think of this. So I want you to be able to see what I've put in there. I've started with my name. Now, there is a skill to burying your name, but I will always give my name. If you don't feel comfortable giving your full name, I could have just said, hello, I'm Jenny. But I've let them know immediately that I'm an executive speech coach. Then I move to the person who's listening. I can help you leverage your people and your profits, very keen words when you can use those, through exceptional communication skills, because you have to promote yourself. When you know you're the best, you must let other people know. Otherwise, how will they? That will impress and increase your client base. So can you see what I've done there? I have established who I am, and I've gone directly into the other person's ears and world. This won't be the best elevator pitch in the world. There are some that are very, very brilliant. However, I find that this works for me when I say it conversationally. Well, it's very nice to meet you. I'm Jenni Prisk, and I'm an executive speech coach. Now, that means I can help you leverage your people and your profits through exceptional communication skills. And as a consequence, they'll impress and increase your client base. So you can see how I've just modified that a little bit, as though I was actually meeting you in person. So I hope this appeals to you and that this is helpful, but you can see there's an exercise on the bottom of the slide. And I would love you to take, and we're just going to sit quietly. You may have already started it. You may already have a brilliant elevator pitch. And if you want to share that with us, please write accordingly in the chat box, which Safira will check. And then we will make sure that you can be heard. But if you don't have one, think of yourself selling yourself, your organization, your skills, and the benefits for the company. So I'm just going to give you, or for the listener. So I'm just going to give you 2 or 3 minutes to write that. Thank you. And I'm going to drink tea while you're doing that. Oops. Now, Safira, are you seeing anything from anyone in the chat box?
Not in terms of elevator pitches yet, Jenny. I think people are writing them, but you're encouraging us to put those in the chat box, right?
If anybody would like to deliver theirs, it would be, if we could have a couple of volunteers deliver their elevator pitch, then that gives 2 more examples for all our participants today, so that they don't just have mine.
Perfect. Yeah, that would be wonderful. So we have a few that are coming through the chat, and then Excellent. I see a couple of hands up that are already raised. I see Fando's hand is raised. And Isaac, I'm not sure if that hand is to share your elevator pitch or whether that's a residual hand from before. And we also have Nicole who has a hand raised. So maybe those 3, if they would be willing, could share their elevator pitches.
Absolutely, that would be wonderful. Thank you. So I'll let whoever you was on first go first. Okay. I'll let you handle this, Safira. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, let's hand over to Fando.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Thando Kumete. I'm a human rights lawyer from South Africa. I specialize in children's rights and women's rights. And I'm also the founder of Mteto Search Engine, which is a mobile app technology that uses big data and machine learning to try and prevent as well as address the challenges of school-related gender-based violence. Thank you so much.
Very good. Very good. We know who you are. We know what you do. We know you're on the edge of your business with regard to being leading edge with the search engine. And we know what that search engine does. And that was under 30 seconds. So congratulations, Thando. That was excellent. And welcome from South Africa. Thank you.
Perfect. So next who had their hand raised was Isaac. Are you willing to share your elevator pitch?
Hi, everyone. I'm Isaac from Zimbabwe. I'm a representative of Let's Build the Future. What we do at our organization, we teach other organizations on our focus areas to do with issues to fight climate change. Some of our focus areas are awareness and capacity building, ecosystem restoration, police advocacy, energy access, waste management. Hence, what we do on this focus area, we teach people to practice sustainability, to fight climate change. As you can see, the world right now, and the leaders are participating in the COP26, for example, which is based in the UK. These all activities are done to fight climate change, as our earth is depreciating due to our activities that can affect the society. Some of our activities that we do can either be land, air, or water pollution. Hence, there's need for us to enlighten people, because many people can degrade the environment because they do not know that the activities are endangering the species that we live in. Like, for example, this world is facing some extinction of some species. As we can see, in USA, there's some cases that arose there about sharks that are facing extinction due to toxic substances that are being deposited in the seas. Hence, it's our duty for us as people to save the environment. For example, on ecosystem restoration, as we restore the environment on ecosystem, we're able to elevate the environment and hydrological cycle as trees help the society in sustaining climate change. Hence, there's need for us to practice sustainable as our world is facing extinction of many species, and also global warming that necessitates heat waves, droughts. Some of parts of the world are facing those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. My goodness, and welcome from Zimbabwe. That was excellent what you covered, Isaac. If I may, I'll make a brief recommendation. I really liked the opening, and especially the words you were using, climate change, sustainability. And with all due respect to you, that's about where I would stop. Because when you started involving the world leaders and the global climate change issues, that's the next part of your conversation, right? What we're doing is what is effectively called baiting a fishing line hook, throwing it out to our listening audience so that they want to know more. So with respect, I would recommend that you stop when you were talking about where the police were involved, and then you said we're teaching sustainability. That would be a great place to stop and ask questions. So I hope that works for you and that you understand what I'm conveying. Thank you. And Spirit, do we have one more?
Yes, I mean, we have a number of hands. So next in the list is Nicole, and it's wonderful that we have so much interest because we're getting live feedback from you, Jenni, which is really helpful. So I'll hand over to Nicole, and then Jenni, maybe you can let us know how many we can take. We have maybe an additional 6 people, 6 hands raised, who would like to share their elevator speech.
All right. Well, perhaps my recommendation would be, please keep them to 30 seconds, and that way we can have all 6.
Perfect.
So short, less is always more in communication. I'll just say that one more time. Less is more. So Nicole, if you're up next, let's hear it for 30 seconds or less. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nicole Consalan. I'm from Mexico City. I'm a youth ambassador for the Creators 2030, and what we do is that we use arts to find solutions to the United Nations 17 SDGs, and we work with artists and youth from all around the world to encourage them to use their own voice to take action based on these SDGs.
Excellent. That was, I'm going to do a thumbs up here. Very good. And Nicole, I can see you, which is very nice. I wasn't able to see the 2 prior to you, but I can see you. That was to the point. That was succinct. And you said it with a lot of good passion. And sharing your energy and your passion is extremely important. So well done on that. Thank you. Good. And the art is one of my passions. So I'm with you all the way on that. Thank you. Excellent. Safira.
So I'm going to call, I'm going to call on the next 3, and maybe you can just go in that order. So we have Dario,
Okay,
Tanu,
I'm writing down Dario,
Tanu, and Selena.
Okay, got their names. That's wonderful. All right. So I guess Dario is the next.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think we just lost Dario. So perhaps Tanu and then Selena.
Is it okay now?
Hello,
This is Dario.
Go ahead, Dario. Go ahead, Dario.
Thank you so much.
Please.
My name is Dario Corolia. From a very early age, I believe I'm made of computer parts. With 5 years experience in communications and multi-level engagement in civic projects, I address key challenges and deliver beyond than mutually beneficial solutions to various stakeholders.
Very good. Short and to the point. Excellent. And I rather like the way you said from a very young age, because they know then that it's imbued in your DNA and that you're very focused and passionate about what you're selling. To the point. My recommendation for you would be when it feels appropriate, speak a little more slowly, right? So I have a New Zealand accent. This may make you smile. In the years that I've been teaching in the United States, even though we all speak English, I've had to slow down quite considerably to make sure that my vowel sounds come across to everybody clearly. So when we're selling ourselves, the slower we go, the more effective it is for the listener. But well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
I appreciate it.
Tanu on the screen, correct? Tana, is she next?
Yes. Hello, I'm Tanu, a student and change maker who can help you build a youth for youth mentorship model which will break the cycle of poverty in your city or country.
Oh my goodness, that is excellent. That's very powerful. That could almost be what we call a byline under a logo. That was very, very effective. Thank you. You could even add a line or 2 more if you wish to, because it is short and succinct. You might want to add something about how you do it. Just a brief line, but otherwise, Tano, very, very good. And where are you coming in from?
I'm from Mumbai, India, please.
Oh, this is so exciting. You've no idea how this warms my heart to think that I'm connected with you all around the world. What an exciting experience that we couldn't do before Zoom. So now it's making it much more, I don't know, our global community is getting smaller. I feel as if you're sitting in the room with me. Thank you very much. And I think, Safira, one last one, is that correct, Selena?
Selena, exactly.
All right, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Selena Sharmin. I'm one of the programming librarian in New York City Public Library. I have my own organization, No Look Women, which I support women who lives under the poverty in New York City to empower them in various workshops. Thank you.
Oh, very good. Again, that's once you've got what you do, a little bit about how you do it, and you could add a benefit in there, although I understand your organization perhaps doesn't want to add a benefit, but what you could say is that we are here to support you and the women in your circle who may be struggling or suffering. You could add that if you wanted to, but another very succinct, Safira told me that you were all very smart, and I'm starting to see that now as I hear from you. So namaste to you. Thank you very much. Safira, I think, are we through with all of the offerings that those signed up?
We have quite a number more hands if we have time to do a few more.
Can you get a consensus from everybody, if they're on, those that are online and participating, if this is helpful to them hearing others? Is there any way we can get a thumbs up?
We can do a thumbs up. So if people want to go down to their reactions, you can put a little thumbs up figure if you would like to hear more elevator pitches. If not, we have also plenty of material to move on with. So let's get a quick indication.
All right, thank you.
I see a few thumbs up.
Then let's do this, Safira. In the interest of everybody's time and progress of the webinar, let's have two more.
Okay.
Let's two more, yes.
Okay, and two more sounds good, and then we can move on.
Yes.
So I see next in line is Carlos and Sudha. So maybe we can have Carlos and Sudha and we can wrap up.
Excellent, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Carlos Infante. I'm a law student in Venezuela. I'm the CEO and founder of Movimiento Creación, organized to ensure and defend human rights on people for a better society and a better future and a better country.
Oh, very good. My goodness, you went straight to the whole world or the country in it. You broke up just a little bit, Carlos, for me, so may have for others. But what I heard was very clear and to the point. You could add an extra line if you wanted to, because you've got time. It was short and to the point. Well done. Thank you. Anything else that you believe will draw that listener in? Add one more line. But good job. Thank you. And lucky last, Sudha, I think you said, Safira?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello, Jenny, and hello, everyone. Greetings from London. I'm Sudha Srivastava. I am president of Young Members Network at Graduate Women International. Professionally, I specialize in public policy research, in particular gender and education, and I'm based in London, so I work from here. I'm passionate about women and girls' education and equal rights. So thank you very much for listening.
Very nice, beautifully put. You're in one of my favorite cities in the world. I lived in London for 3 years, right back when I was about some of your ages, a long time ago. That was very clear, very passionate and to the point. Good work on that, Sudha. And you, when you say at the end of yours, as you did, I'm very passionate about it, that gets conveyed to the listener and they can then also get swept up in your energy and passion. So these are excellent. So I think with all that great input, we've probably covered the elevator pitch. Work on it, hone it, practice it with friends, because the more you say it, the more it's something that just you could be in your sleep and say it, because you are so aware and so conscious of what you do, and what you do for the world is what I'm hearing from all of you. So thank you for that. So Safira, I think we'll move on now, if that's all right.
That sounds good, Jenny. Yes.
So now we're going to look at the ask. Now, some of you, I'm sure, will be extremely good at this. You've gained your confidence, you feel comfortable, you're not afraid of authority figures. You've found that asking for what you want, whether it be funding or a policy to be passed, you've found that, and or at least you've learned to do it. But for others of us, it can have some fear involved and a lack of confidence. So what I want to focus on now is the ask and how we can make you feel better. And I hope you're taking particular notice of that quotation. I just love the closing words on that, that said there's something inside you that is greater than any obstacle. Now, many of you in your lives already will have overcome significant obstacles. And if not, you're working with people who do and have to. Therefore, those are the people standing beside you and with you when you go to make the ask. However, there are things that we can do to help ourselves. When you can, look up other forms of communication that have been pitched to the body that you are asking from to see what has worked. Has it been the shortness and the clarity? Has it been a certain style? Are there certain words that were used for that organization or inside that organization that is their industry language, and you can relate to that by putting some of that into your ask? So when you start with the audience in mind, it starts to take some of the pressure out of it because you are speaking to their needs. And again, as I'd mentioned with the elevator pitch, very good to begin with the end result in mind. Always know, what is my goal with this ask? And then sometimes, because it becomes a form of negotiation, we have to also ask ourselves a question: where would I compromise? Because we don't always get what we ask for. However, in line with our goal, we should know what we want, where we will compromise. Maintaining strong body language is one of the most effective ways to have people listen to you. Now, I'm going to go into this even more during the presentation skills portion on our agenda. However, strong body language makes other people see your strength, and it's very hard for them to put you aside, not listen to you, because you are dominating your space. Now, the word dominant is it makes people a little bit nervous, but in order to be strong, and many of you are doing this, you'll see that I am sitting very center stage in my office in New Zealand, and sitting very upright because I have my feet firmly planted on the floor. I have what we call an imaginary string that's running from the top of my head to the ceiling, which is helping me to be upright. If I was standing to deliver to you, I would stand up still with my feet firmly planted and imagine that string holding me up. When you can feel the earth and feel the sky, this is just how I like to put it, then you are supported by the planet, if you like, and you can handle anything. So your body language, the speed of your delivery, your gestures, all these things are extremely important during the ask. Now, if you're not doing them in person and you're doing them on Zoom as I am, I'm using gestures constantly. You can't necessarily see them. Now you can, because they provide, excuse me, emphasis to my voice and add strength to my voice, and also add inflection, We've all been bored to death by the monotone that goes on and on and on without pausing, no change in tone, etc., which I'm attempting to do now. So when we inflect our voices, the listening audience is called to hear you far more effectively. If statistics and details, metrics, graphs, anything like that can be used to further your argument, do consider including them. They are extremely important. And just to reiterate, be confident, get to the point. When you smile, it's not only disarming, it says to others, I'm comfortable in my skin, my message is sound, my facts are real and correct, and I know what I'm talking about. And always feel equal. You would not be asked to provide the ask if you weren't the correct authority to be doing so. Therefore, that gives you a leading edge quotient right from the get-go. However, in this world, when you are presenting to others who need your information, they can't move forward without you. They may not know that yet. However, they're finding that out from you. We must always feel equal. So that means limiting or minimizing, eliminating any kind of debilitating language. Don't say things like, I am trying to convince you. Say, I will convince you. Don't say things like, I'm hopeful that you will receive my message in the spirit in which I'm delivering it. Say, I feel certain that you will receive my message in the spirit in which I'm delivering it. Don't try, be. Don't be hopeful, be sure, because the sound of your language ensures that it is heard convincingly and with courage. Amplify your voice. It's what we've called this workshop. All right. So now I'm going to stop having delivered those points to see if Sapphira has received any questions about this from any of you. Thank you.
Yes, perfect timing, Jenny. We're receiving more elevator pitches in the chat, which is fantastic. Usually we have names and titles and where we're from, but really getting a sense of who's on the call through these elevator pitches is fantastic. And I wonder whether this is something we can take with us to other meetings, is introducing ourselves in the chat in these beautiful, concise ways. We do have a question, which I'm actually going to hand over to Axel to ask.
All right,
hello.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, Jenny. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
I'm
Yeah.
curious to know your thoughts on implementing your pronouns in your elevator pitch.
Implementing. Can you give me just a further example of that, please, Axel?
Like, for example, hi, my name's Axel Lindenmeyer. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm a student at Pace University. Just prefacing your pronouns, that way people know how to address you and it's more gender inclusive.
That is a very good point. I thought that was what you were referring to, but I just wanted to be sure, and for all of us on the session. I believe nowadays, as we're putting it into our emails and our signature boxes, that this is becoming increasingly important. However, with due respect, my recommendation would be, don't necessarily include it in the first uttering of your elevator pitch. I would ask you to insert those pronouns when the conversation gets going. So you might want to then say, after you've described your organization and the person asks you something more about it, just say very, very calmly and very, very clearly, just for your information, I want you to know that these are the pronouns I use to describe myself, just so we're clear on our continuing communication. Tell me what you think of that.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I appreciate that. I think that's smart. So if the communication continues, you know, they know how to address you. And
Exactly.
yeah, I like that. Thank you for including that.
You're very welcome. When we introduce it instantly, that can take, if not everybody, as we know, is actualized around the pronouns and around inclusivity, etc. Therefore, when we insert them right at the very beginning, you're providing something else for them to be distracted by and not necessarily hearing what you are selling. Therefore, that's why I suggested it. So thank you for your comments also.
Perfect. And I see that Dario, do you have a question on this right now?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Jenny, are you able to share some advice on how to work on my tonation? You gave an example when we are flat and that we sound kind of boring. So how can I play with my sound and have more engaging intonation? Because I've been trying something, but it's not working.
Well, thank you, Dario. That's a very good question. So what Dario is asking is, how does he make his voice sound musical, sound inflected? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Excellent, thank you. So what I recommend, first of all, if you hear that if you feel, or people have told you, and this is why we ask good friends to become good advocates of our work, is ask close friends who hear you speak, or close colleagues, how do I sound? Do I sound as though I am inflected? The way you can hear yourself, the way the rest of the world hears you, is just to cup your hands, and I wish I could see all of you doing this, but I can't, behind your ears, and then you bring your elbows forward so that you create in here like a listening studio. You actually then hear the voice that the rest of the world is hearing. That's your true, pure voice. If it sounds flat, then you get a paragraph from a book or from a paper or something that means a lot to you, or the description of your organization, and read that aloud while you're listening. The words to hit are normally the verbs and any of the doing words. In other words, if I want to sound inflected, I would activate my voice on the verbs. Don't overdo it, because then it makes it sound unnatural. Practicing out loud 5 minutes a day, reading with your hands here, gets you in touch with that beautiful instrument, which is your voice, and helps you to understand whether you are increasing your inflection or whether it's staying flat. Does that help you?
That's massive. It's a genius, and I'll definitely try it tonight, not tomorrow.
I'm going to get you to put that in writing and send that word genius to my husband, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely, feel free. Thank you so much.
So just when we get in touch with our voices, that's when we can work with them, and they get really exciting. Try it soft, try it loud, try it inflected, all those kinds of things. And then you'll find when you take your hands away, after you've practiced that for 3 weeks, any skill we practice 5 times a day for 21 days becomes a habit. So it's not that long.
Thank you.
All right, Safira, any more?
We have 2 more hands, Jenny. Do we have time for some more questions?
Certainly, yes. I want to make sure we're covering what you need, not specifically what I've prescribed. So if these are questions perhaps about the ask, or please, let's hear them.
Okay, perfect. So we have Isaac and then Carlos, and if we can make sure that the questions are short, precise questions. So Isaac, over to you.
Okay, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I just wanted to ask you something. Is it relevant to create a discussion session as for maybe the presenter to give confidence and to get more answers? The speaker said before, maybe I should explain some of the energy axis. For example, on energy axis, maybe I can create a discussion session about what a sustainable clean energy can be used to reduce the pollution. Like, for example, maybe many people can give different opinions. Like, for example, like these days, there's transition moving to electric cars, which is done in UK, USA, Singapore, and many other developed countries in Europe. And also there's usage of solar energy, biogas, wind turbines, as a way to reduce pollution.
Forgive my
Okay.
interruption. I'm
Hello.
having difficulty hearing all your words, but I think
Oh, okay. I'll speak slowly.
I think it's the connection. But if I may, I think what you're asking is, should you include some more descriptions and words about your work in your elevator pitch? I would recommend, and I hope this is helpful to you, that once you've delivered who you are in that 30-second time frame and what you do, then you may wish to ask questions of the listener around sustainability. What are you doing in your world with regard to managing climate change? How do you deal with sustainability? How are you, have you installed solar energy? Because sometimes when we ask the listener questions, that engages them more with you and they become more interested in your topic. So I hope that helps you.
Okay, thank you so much for your contribution.
You're very welcome. And I think we have Carlos Safira.
Yes, over to Carlos.
Thank you. Is this Carlos Infante who came on before?
Yes, that's me.
Where are you based, Carlos? I didn't have your country.
Venezuela. I'm from Venezuela.
Venezuela, my goodness, that's wonderful. And do you have a quick question about either the ask or the elevator pitch? Go ahead.
Yes, I actually wanted to know what advice or how to make our speeches most powerful and full. Like, you know, there's some speeches are like make people feel the one that is talking, like the spokesperson is talking about something and the public is going like crazy saying like, yes, I feel that. And that's the kind of emotional feelings I want to give to my public. So I wanted to know if you have any recommendations advice in that, please.
And so to summarize, you're asking, how do you make your speeches more thoughtful?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Great, thank you. What I recommend, first of all, as I've said on the slide that's up about the ask, research previous communication. This is for everyone. So when I knew that I was giving this workshop today, I made sure that I did plenty of research about all of you so that I know to the best I can who you are and where you're coming from and what your lives are involved with. So when a speaker is aware of the audience and speaks about in their language, using some of their terms, I took Amplify Your Voice. I took that off the YLYP website. Well, to a point, and then that's why we made it the title, because I wanted it to belong to you. So use the words and the adjectives and the descriptions of your audience. Always remember, less is more. The less we say, the more the audience sits and listens and fills in the words that they need, because the average audience is about 10 words behind the speaker. That's why I'm speaking slowly and deliberately, because I know even though probably everyone on the call speaks English, it's not necessarily your native language, your cultural language. So slowing down, choosing words, but words that relate to the audience are some of the most important things to do. A very wise person once said in a quote, think like, now this is going to sound sexist, but I'm using the words that were in the quote. It was from W.B. Yeats, who was a poet in England. Think like a wise man, but speak in the language of the people. Okay, so hopefully that will help you. Think like a wise person, but speak in the language of the people that you're speaking to. All right? Good, thank you. Safira, are we moving on now?
I think it would be good to move on. We have 3 more hands, but maybe I can encourage those people to put their questions in the chat so that you can move on, Jenny. And then when we pause again for questions, I can summarize some of those questions from the chat,
That would
if
be
that's
terrific.
okay.
Thank you all very much. So now I'm actually moving on to another exercise for you all. And this won't take long. And as I'm going to read this, I don't normally recommend that you read from slides, but because this is an exercise, I'm going to. So we're now talking about the ask. Visualize a situation from your past, in other words, something that you've already delivered, or one that is coming up. Preferably one that worked well, but don't worry if it is one that had a negative conclusion to it. I want you just for a couple of minutes, close your eyes and hear yourself and see yourself speaking. I do this a lot. I visualize myself in front of an audience. I visualized myself on the screen with all of you today. And then if it did happen to be a negative experience, I want you now to see yourself feeling very strong and confident and a successful outcome. I'm doing this with something that I did very recently, and I'm going to do it with you. So just let's take, even a minute is enough, but just when you can see yourself in front of that important audience, although all audiences are important, but the one that may be able to change your future, see yourself in front of them. See yourself on the Zoom screen or whichever platform that you're using, and visualize success, and then just write down or type a few notes that will help you to stay strong the next time you have to commit to being in front of an audience with an ask. We know nowadays that sports people are coached through visualization, and speakers can be also. So seeing yourself giving the ask successfully, confidently, with strength, you can take that visual image inside your head into any room in which you're speaking, in person or virtually, and you can convey that strength. So I hope that that just gave you a moment to put yourself, you put your armor on, and you always put that smile on your face because it's completely disarming. And it says to somebody, I can smile because I'm confident. I can smile because I'm in charge of my information. I can smile because I know that you are going to help me to the best of your ability. All right. So moving on from there. Now, mobilizing volunteers. I would say that however many of us are on this call together today, we are all volunteers of some form or other. I'm sure that's correct, right? If you're a member of YPLP, that's because you are an ardent volunteer for that organization. I'm not, and this is a big point, and I don't want you to think that I'm going to raise things about money. However, I'm giving my time for these 1.5 or 2 hours this morning because I'm volunteering and because it's extremely important to me at my age of 72 to be able to share with those of you who are coming into our future in the present. And we're all volunteers. But sometimes it can be the hardest thing in the world to mobilize volunteers, often because they are not paid employees. So when Safira and I discussed this workshop, we talked about how can we go about this. So let me move to the next slide. I have that question to the left because when we're passionate about an organization, we just think, well, wouldn't the rest of the world like to join? And wouldn't they just like to give hours and hours of their precious personal time to it? And that's not always the case. They want to volunteer, but they have parameters, they have limits. So we always have to take that into consideration with our volunteers, that they are giving up their time, their talent, and sometimes their treasure to us to further our organizations. So first of all, starting at that top left on that circle, you must know your mission. So while I'm going through this slide, if you would like to write down your mission without looking at your website, because you should know it, then that would be a good thing to do. Sharing your passion is sharing your energy. Now, I just want to show you how much energy I am putting into this webinar with you today by taking it away. So I could just be sitting here chatting with you. I'm now looking out the window. My voice has gone flatter. I don't look as though I care as much. Can you see the change? So what I'm doing is I am increasing my energy so that I can share my passion with you, so that my passion allows you to step into your passion, and then we can get on the same page together. So when we are selling our organization, we need to be passionate about it. And passion is energy, it's enthusiasm, it's excitement, it's enlightenment, it's all those, enlightenment, I mean, it's all those E words that really allow the person to feel it. I love YPLP. And I love it because it permits me, I'm being you now, because it permits me to collaborate with people of my age and stage around the world to promote gender equality globally. Now, if I said that flatly, you wouldn't hear a word. If I said it with too many words, you wouldn't hear them. So this is why sharing your passion is important. Telling powerful stories is also important. Giving examples of why you founded an organization or of why you belong to the one you belong to. Let me tell you my story. You will all remember 9/11. Wherever you were, you will remember it. It's stamped on our brains forever. When in the week following 9/11, I decided that it was time for me to found a non-profit organization. And I did. It was called Voices of Women, with the acronym VOW, so that we were making vows to women and to young people that we would work on creating a peaceful society with the prevention of war. On October 17th, which was just 6 weeks after 9/11, October 17th of 2001, I'm sorry, I founded Voices of Women with a group of 35 women who are still my friends to this day. And we made a promise to ourselves and to the 80 audiences we spoke to that we would spread the importance of peace, the importance of women's voices at negotiation tables, and leadership for world peace. We also started providing education for young people around the world. So when I tell that story of VOW, I tell the story of how and why it began. And you've got that same story to tell. Or you can tell a story about something amazing that a volunteer did. Because when you speak like to like, that's when people listen. Then explain the women's movement. We know that this world still isn't sure why we have International Women's Day, why we talk about women's rights being human rights, as was first stated by Hillary Rodham Clinton at Beijing, and I know that you're all very aware of and connected to Beijing Plus 25. But letting the world understand how important it is that women are seen, that they are recognized, and that they are championed is extremely important. And you're all fighting for genders of all sorts. You are fighting with all the multiple components of our human family to make us all equal. Therefore, if explaining the women's movement or any other movement in your parameters is important, make sure you have some facts. I love to remind the world that New Zealand women were given the vote first in 1893. That's always very exciting to me. And yet, I look back all over those years and I come forward to today, and still we are fighting for equal pay, for equal parity inside our companies. So use all the statistics you've got and say to that listener or to this volunteer, did you know, or are you aware that, and then put your statistics in. And they're sitting there going, wow, no, I didn't. I knew I was struggling, but I didn't know that most of the world was struggling with me. We are also exceptionally blessed in New Zealand because currently we have our third woman Prime Minister. And I know that many of you are very aware of Jacinda Ardern and how she's kept our country COVID-free, how she handled a dreadful massacre at a mosque, and how she also dealt with an explosion on one of our volcanic islands. And she's only 40 years old. So she is one of your kith and kin. And we are fortunate that we have women leading our country, but still New Zealand is way behind with gender equality. So these things are extremely important to talk about all the time. An example I shared with someone at a dinner table here in New Zealand just a week ago was about equal pay. And I asked them, do you realize that it's why we celebrate April 14 as Equal Pay Day? Because at the beginning of each year, a man is granted his salary, but it takes until April 14 of that same year for a woman to be garnering or gathering the same salary. It takes her 4 months to get what he got in his paycheck at the beginning of the year. It takes her 4 months longer. Those kind of statistics are quick to tell, and they have an immediate impact. Celebrate the volunteer impacts or the benefits. What do they get out of joining it? Everybody loves the WIFM factor, the WIIFM, which is not a radio station. It simply means, and I know you know this, what's in it for me. We go through life, all of us, wanting to know, what do I gain? What are the gifts in it for me? So what do they gain? Not only the pleasure of joining other people with the same mission, they get the benefit perhaps of learning ahead of others. They get the opportunity of, when the world permits after COVID, to meet en masse and to have these exhilarating and exciting and stimulating conversations. So make sure that everybody knows what the benefits are. And then that cycle just comes round again to the next volunteer. What is my mission? How can I tell it passionately? What are the stories I will share? Remember to promote women and celebrate the volunteer benefits. I'm expecting that there may be some questions on this. Is that correct, Safira?
We do have some questions that have been shared in the chat.
Excellent.
So I can summarize them if now is a good time.
It certainly would be. And I do have an exercise around mobilizing volunteers, but we may wait in case one of these questions brings up the point. So yes, please go ahead.
So the questions are back in terms of relation to the elevator pitches. So one question is, can you have your elevator pitch on a card? Do you have any thoughts about that? How do we introduce ourselves if we have multiple roles? So for example, some of us have professions and we also work for an NGO. How do we balance that as an introduction? There was a request as to whether you were able to give any feedback or advice on the elevator pitches that have been put in the chat. I don't know if we have time for that, and I know you're quite busy, Jenny, but there was a request there. We have a couple of questions possibly about things that you might touch on later on in the presentation. One is tips that you have to gain confidence while speaking.
Yes.
How can you make sure you feel less emotional when the subject is difficult? And then one question is about distinguishing between a mission and your passion. When is appropriate, I guess, to share each of those. So that's where we're at in terms of questions in the chat.
Excellent questions. Thank you for that, Safira. It seems the elevator pitch was an important facet of our program this morning. Let me go back to the first question very quickly. I would recommend that you write your elevator pitch on a card, carry it with you everywhere and practice it. So that when someone says, well, what do you do? Or who do you work for? Or how do you spend your days? It's right there in your head. When you actually take out the card and read it to somebody, it can give them a sense of lack of confidence because they may not think you know it sufficiently well, when we must know very well who we're selling, what we're selling, and why we're selling it. So I would recommend that for you.
Sorry, Jenny, could it be also on a business card? Would you give someone your elevator pitch as part of your business card?
Absolutely. Usually what I recommend, though, to be on your business card, and I always say use the back either to print your what the details on the front of the card in another language that is appropriate. If you don't do that, use that wonderful real estate on the back of the card to print your mission. So I usually recommend, because they're going, if they can take the mission away and it says what your organization or your company will do for that person, they've got that specifically in front of it. What you are doing is basically sharing some of that mission in your elevator pitch. But yes, an absolutely marvelous idea to use that space, certainly. I do that with my business cards for any organization that I've been involved with. And when I get to a certain portion in this program, I'll show you where you'll see where I use it. Introducing yourself if you have multiple professions. Again, a listener can absorb only so much. You're taking what you need from this webinar. You're not taking everything. I don't flatter myself to think that you're hanging on every single word. That's not how the human brain functions. My recommendation with multiple professions is read your audience, which is the more or most important profession I should be addressing today. Because if you deliver them all in your first opening words, that confuses people. You'll take them offline. They'll start to think about all the other facets and they'll lose what you're saying in the moment. So make it audience appropriate is what I would recommend for that. More chats for the elevator pitches. Why don't we see how we're doing at the, I've just flagged that, I'm making notes. Why don't we look at that towards the end of our seminar? And I know I keep calling it a seminar, a webinar, a program, but you know what I mean. Let's save that for the end. Would that be all right, Safira?
Perfect.
Excellent.
That sounds
all right.
good.
I will cover how to gain more confidence and how to be less emotional. And your mission versus your passion, they are the same, but slightly different. Your mission has been created by your board, by your volunteers, by people who believe in your mission. Therefore, it's the brass plate that you hang on your company front, if you like, or you hang outside your office. Your passion is what you deliver the mission or your elevator speech with. I hope that makes sense. The mission comes first, but the delivery of it is where you share your passion. Does that answer what you had at the moment, Safira?
Yes, that's a good place to move on.
All right, excellent. So here's another exercise for you. It's pretty much copying what I was doing in the previous slide. Draw a circle, write your mission in the center if you'd like to, or do it the way I did with this circle here. And then choose 3 words that describe why you are passionate about your mission. Because I'm saying 3 words, it could be 3 phrases. But what I'm passionate about Prisk communication because it grows confidence, it assists people, and it's a skill that can improve life generally. When we communicate well, everything else falls into place. So my passionate details would be supports, grows, and teaches. That's how I would describe it. just write yourself a memory piece about a success story that you've had inside your organization. What was something that worked? When do you remember that you absolutely grabbed somebody, excuse me, when you were telling them about your company or organization? Just write down a few facts about that. And then, and you don't have to do all this during this program. These are just considerations for you in your own time. 3 short statements about the women's movement and equality. And you'll notice that when I ask you to do things, I am using 3 as the operative number. It's been studied and proven over the years by researchers that when we develop a speech, having 3 points, 3 key points in it is about as many as the audience can take away, and it keeps you on track. And anything that is an odd number actually provides more balance on completion. And then the final point here is explaining the benefits. Again, what's in it for them. So that's either with YPLP or another organization that you head. So you can choose to be doing this as I'm explaining it, saving it for later, or of course not doing it at all because it's not a strict piece of instruction. But I just thought that while we're in the midst of this, drawing that circle and thinking about how you create a mobilization reason for volunteers, it helps you to be more focused and more purposeful. So back to Safira again, did anything come up that's relevant, say, to the volunteers or to the ask? Because we're going to save elevator pitches for the end. Thank you.
Yes. So we have one. Do you have any suggestions for identifying attractive volunteer benefits? And how would you pitch those benefits?
Wow, that's a very good one. And of course, I don't know the exact organization. Are you able to find that out so that I could give specific examples to the person who posted the question?
Yes, this is one for Liam. I don't know if he wants to speak to it.
Or just tell us, what is your organization?
Okay, in the chat. There's one more question, Jenny, that is not sure if it's the right time to ask, but what are some tips when presenting to people of lower socioeconomic backgrounds?
That's a very good question. And I've done that in Africa, so I can give you some firsthand information on that. Let me go back to the attractive benefits. First of all, often what we have to do is turn the organization around and say, if I was joining my organization, what would I expect from it? What we can often do is if we charge for events, then the volunteers get a much reduced charge. That's usually one of the biggest and most obvious, right? Perhaps there is something on an online platform that your volunteers could learn from or gain from that isn't available to everybody else, but it's a perk for their volunteers. Sometimes it is that when you join, what we did when we started VOW was we printed t-shirts. That's often one of the obvious ones, because when your volunteers are wearing your t-shirts, they're promoting your organization every time they go out in them. Sometimes you have events to which volunteers are invited and they are appreciated and they are applauded at those events. There will be others, I'm sure, online with us in this session this morning who have brilliant ideas that they use in their organization. So I would welcome them to post them so we can share them. But that's just 4 quick ones while I think of them, and I hope that helps you in the interim. And also, one fifth one, actually, because I like that odd number concept, is to make sure when you have meetings of the volunteers that you highlight anyone who has done something especially good, especially different, or they're a standout, because that encourages other volunteers to work to that higher standard. So that would be another thing. When people are applauded, they may say, oh, I don't like this. I don't like being in the spotlight. But secretly underneath, we all like being appreciated. So it's always a lovely thing to do to and for our volunteers. So I hope that helps. Now, speaking to people on a lower socioeconomic basis. The first thing I recommend is to scrub or scratch or eliminate that feeling or that perception. We are all equal in the eyes of whoever created us. I'm not going to make this a religious conversation, that's not appropriate. So we were all created equal. We all have a heart beating in our body. We have a brain pulsing in our head. We all want to be accepted. We all want to be recognized. We all want to be included. And as somebody wisely said to me one day, my heart and my brain do not know what color I am. And that is so extremely important. So when I was training in Africa, the very first things I did, I was in Kenya providing classes for women in presentation skills and advocacy because they wanted to start businesses. What I did when I spoke with them was first of all, ask them what they needed. I didn't tell them what I thought they needed. And that creates equality in the first moments of an exchange. Secondly, I sat back and learned from those women. And what I learned in the first 5 minutes was their resilience and their courage to face things that I had never had to face in my life. And the more they talked, the more the equality grew. So the style of speaking to people is to ask them questions about where they're coming from, what their needs are, how you can best help them, not by telling them what you think they need to know. I'm going to leave it at that very simply, but I'll be interested, Sophia, to see if anybody comes back with any comments to that statement.
Perfect. That sounds good, Jenny.
That sound all right? Anything more, or should we move on from our exercise here? How are we doing for time? We've been going almost an hour and we have been going an hour and 20 minutes in my books. Is that yours too?
That's right. Yes. So we have about 40 minutes left if we want to fill that entire time.
All right. And if people would tell you, perhaps let you know with a thumbs up or the applause reaction button, if we're doing the right thing by them and they want to stay, we'll certainly keep going. So we're moving on now to handling adversaries. If you haven't experienced this yet, trust me, in the rest of your life, you will. And adversarial people and adversarial behavior and comments will always exist in the world because people are not going to always see eye to eye with you. And I know you know that if you've experienced that already. So I've got rather a full slide to follow, and I want you just to peruse this and then we'll discuss it. There's a lot on there. And I'm going to start with the because column on the left-hand side. I'm going to start with the second bullet, actually, because I have a mantra that I use internally whenever I face a situation where I think there will be pushback, adversarial comments, confrontation, whatever we call it. This is the mantra. Frequently, the most adversarial or arrogant, whatever the word is, people in the world are the most vulnerable. Frequently, the most adversarial people are the most vulnerable. And when I think about that, it starts to equalize that person or people for me and with me. I begin to think why, especially in my executive coaching, I will often have an executive push back against me. And I just say to myself, are they in that position because they've been promoted above their skill set? Have they had the most shocking day or week in their office and I'm bearing the brunt of it? Are they adversarial because I'm coming across as comfortable and confident and that's not how they're feeling? So human nature is dealing with a dozen different frames of that personality of their own every single day. Sometimes people just want to look powerful, especially if they're in front of their peers, because it's important to them too. They may have been brought down by others in their lives. Sometimes they hold power because it's an actual 100% fact. They are powerful and you're speaking to them and they have every right to hold that power, but you are still their equal. So vulnerable people will often lash out. So what my attempt always is to see their vulnerability and speak to that as opposed to their adversarial nature. I got some superb advice from one of my dearest friends. Her name is Carol. She might even be listening in today, I'm not sure. When I was chairing the Commission on the Status of Women in San Diego for San Diego County, a woman showed up at our meetings and she said some very, very nasty things to me and about me. She was sitting in the audience portion of the commission setting. I was able to handle it, and I was also able to keep my dignity, which is extremely important, and keep her dignity. When I shared it with my friend Carol, she said to me, if this happens again, say this to her, I am so sorry you feel that way. And so I did use that phrase because this woman did come back to the commission to do the same things all over again. I used that phrase, I'm sorry you feel that way, and it stopped her in her tracks because what I was doing was meeting her with empathy, which she did not expect. So we just never know where these folks are coming from. She was hurt. She'd been left out of something that she thought was my doing, and it was not my doing. And we managed to get to the bottom of the picture. The other thing that I did, and I'm not saying you have to do it, but I'm hoping this is food for thought. Several months later, this woman's house burned down. They'd left a ring on the stove and her house was razed to the ground. A fund was set up and I contributed to it. We haven't had to see each other since because I'm in New Zealand and we're not in each other's circles now. But she did come over to me when I did see her at an event and she said, thank you for your donation. It meant a lot. So we can heal adversarial situations. Now, these are not probably like all the ones that you're facing. We also have to think about the fact that they may not like you. We can't all be liked. They may not like something about you from the past, a past encounter. We can't walk around with a badge that we wear that says, like me, please, even though we would like it. People dislike it. I have been told people don't like me because they see me as too confident. I must live with that, and I must live with those people. They perhaps don't like your organization or your argument. We have no idea. Or they just want to look good in front of other people. And as I've put at the bottom, 3+ signs, there are thousands more reasons. So we get that placed in front of us and say, when I present today, I may face adversarial comments and I am ready for them because I am going to remain calm and dignified. Maintaining your own personal dignity is one of the most precious and important things that you can do. We only get one chance at this life. It is not a dress rehearsal. We are lucky if we get to live nowadays to 80 years. If I get 80, I've only got 8 left, which scares me. I've got so many things I want to do, and I'm hoping I've got more than 8. However, we don't know. And the last impression we leave on people is the lasting impression. Know your argument, and I've said here 150%, because when we know it thoroughly and we must know it better than the people we're presenting to, then we're secure, we're safe. Amplify your voice. Speak with strength, speak with passion, speak with a desire for people to hear you. Know what triggers your hot buttons. We all have hot buttons. I know that that is one of my weaknesses, or one of my hot buttons is because of my personality profile, I know that I like to be recognized. And if somebody overlooks me, that can set me off on the wrong foot. So when I get up to speak, I take that with me so that I'm aware that I shouldn't be seeking accolades. I should be seeking for consent. And that helps me to balance how I approach the proposition. And if your requests are not met fully, or you've had to be compromised, always be gracious in defeat. Always remember to say thank you. Always remember to leave the room or the space or the Zoom session with dignity, with a smile that says, I so appreciate your time. I appreciate your input. I will go away and reconsider the information you've given me, because it carries you on to the next encounter with so much strength. And I love this expression because you may not be able to see that writing. I've realized it's very small, but it's actually Walt Disney who said this, that the flower that blooms in adversity is the rarest and most beautiful of all. This just seemed to fit this conversation here. So I'm going to move on very quickly. There's no exercise following this one, but back to Safira to see if she's had anything relating to any of our more current slides. Thank you.
Yeah, this is beautiful, Jenni. So much wisdom in what you've just shared. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure many of us on the call are appreciating this too. There is one question that has come through about any advice that you have with kind of prejudgment. So for example, a religious organization who kind of deals with hate just because it's, targeted at a religion. So is there a way that you can kind of work through these walls that people put up when they hear the word faith? And then there's one more question that came through about holding the attention of your audience kind of throughout the presentation. Is there a way to kind of keep people engaged?
Yes, there are, and I'm going to handle that one more when we get to the presentations. However, let me address the first one about the prejudgment. As I said, that comes around from that bullet there, that they don't like your proposition or your organization. The word faith can have double connotations. It can mean religion. It can also be your belief in humankind. So you can translate that word faith appropriately for the audience that you are addressing. If you know that there's going to be pushback and adversary, then deal with any of the negative elements first. Whenever I've worked with any politicians over the years who have tried to keep the most controversial elements way down in their speeches, I've said, no, let's bring it to the top, because that's what's uppermost on the audience's mind, so deal with it. And there are ways of dealing with it because we can step inside other people's thought processes. In other words, for example, I have had to speak to an audience where I had somebody stand up at the back and I was teaching public speaking, and she called out to me, I think that you are an abominable person. What right do you think you've got to come to America and teach us how to speak? And she yelled it at me and there were about 500 people in the room, and she yelled it from the very back. So if you put your faith element in here, I had somebody who distinctly said out loud, I really don't like you. So I stepped further forward down the podium. This was a real situation. And I looked at her and I said to her, my words, I'm very sorry that you feel that way. But let me ask a question of the audience. How many of you in this room were born and raised, and your parents were born and raised in America? And of course, not many hands went up because we are such a melting pot in the United States, and particularly in California. And I said, when you look around the room, each of us here is being given an opportunity. And the opportunity is for me today to be able to present, because I am grateful to America for allowing me to establish my business and be here speaking to you today. The door banged very soon afterwards and she left the room. So I did it calmly, I did it kindly, I did it with a smile, just the way I showed you. I got a standing ovation from the audience, which I didn't expect, but because I like being recognized, that was wonderful. That was icing on the cake. However, what I did was say, I'm not afraid of your argument. I believe in what I do. And let me explain it to you in the most equal way I possibly can. I hope that helps whoever asked that question. Start right at the top. And a statement can be, I am well aware that not many of you, or not all of you, are comfortable sitting here for my presentation today. And you're not comfortable because I am going to discuss something that goes against your values and your beliefs. However, the world is a melting pot and we're all in this together to move it forward. Please allow me to address my topic. And when you start in ways like that, people will listen. So Safira, I hope that helps.
Perfect, Jenny. Thank you. So helpful.
All right, then I'm going to hold the audience attention till we get to the public speaking, if that's all right, or the presentations. So moving on now to inclusivity. I've already alluded to this word. And when I found this definition, and I did it on that slide purposely because that was to show the world being inclusive, that I just wanted to see us all as members of the same planet. And I'd just like you to, for yourself, read this version of inclusion. We all have a right in this world to be included, every single one of us. I'm not concerned about socioeconomic situations. I'm not concerned that somebody may not be able to live in a house like mine or speak a language like mine. Everybody came here the same way and they will leave the same way. And while we're here, that makes us equal. And I developed this next slide for you, this quote, because this is how I feel about it. We are all born of women. So we all come here the same way. So as far as I know, there hasn't been another means decided or created yet. We all depart this life alone. We may be surrounded by family and friends, but that final breath is ours to take and we leave alone. And we go into the unknown alone. But while we're alive, we can seek and practice inclusion. So there are languages for this too. Let me move on again. There's language that includes all, and one of our participants on this session has already raised it. She said, when do I introduce my pronouns? When I talked about a woman earlier, I called her they, because even though that's very hard for some of us with our grammar, because mine is so entrenched after all these years of schooling, but I must practice it. I must use it. I'm now living in New Zealand where some of my greatest friends that I'm meeting are Maori. They are our indigenous race. I write to them in the words they're teaching me in Maori on my emails to them. I greet them in their language. It is the very smallest amount of understanding, but it lets them know I want us to feel equal and I want them to feel included as I want to be included in their world. So our language is incredibly important. And we can teach older people like me, those of you who are young, can teach us. Hear yourself when you speak. Another reason I speak slowly is so that I can hear every word that's coming out of my mouth. So that if I do utter something that is bias oriented, I can move to change it. I've still made the error, but whoever's listening sees that and hears that I am working to change. This doesn't happen overnight, we know that. Listen to the language of others. I'm listening to you online when you ask questions, and I'm listening to how you phrase things and the pronouns and the words that you use, because it's helping me to understand my audience. And on a daily basis, we all have an audience. They may be all like-minded, they may all look and sound like us, but they're all still wanting to be included. There is nothing more special than being included. There is a gentleman at my supermarket here in Kerikeri in the Bay of Islands where I live, and he is a small person. Whenever I go into the supermarket, I make sure that I greet him. He's just had a daughter. I ask how she is, and we have a wonderful conversation. Of late, when I've been going into the supermarket, when he sees me in an aisle, he says to me, because we know each other's names, "Jenny, is there anything I can help you find or do today?" And he walks around some of the aisles with me. That has created, I believe, and I'm gaining the joy of his friendship, but I think it's because he knows that we are equals, and why wouldn't I include him? What I mean by objective versus subjective language is this, and it's a coaching method I use with the number of clients I coach. If I have an issue with one of you, let's just say Safira and I have had an argument, right? Which I can't imagine in a million years ever happening, because she is such a wonderful young woman, young person. See, I have to call her person because I'm not completely sure how she identifies. So to make sure, or she's a wonderful human, and that also covers it. I might say, oh, Safira said she was going to send me so-and-so, and it didn't turn up, and I get all anxious and agitated, and I can feel this anger building up in me. And at the moment, what I'm doing is I'm leaving her out. I'm not giving her a chance, because it's all I was disappointed. You didn't send this to me because I wanted it. But if I change that to objective language, it changes. Safira, I'm dealing with this situation where the information that was promised was not sent. Therefore, it's delaying my final process. Do you have any ideas on how we can fix this? You see how I took the eyes out, and I didn't, but now I'm including her in the collaboration. So it's a matter of raising our awareness, reading the room, seeing who is in it, and remembering that everybody wants to feel important. So here's an exercise for you, and then I'll ask Safira if perhaps she has any questions. I'd like you just to think of an audience that you have presented to. How diverse was it? I'm thinking of all of you constantly as I speak. I'm speaking slowly because if my language isn't clear, then I need to make it clear so you can be included. I know that your culture, your values, your expectations are all different from mine. So I have to think, how diverse is this audience, as do you? Did you see everyone? Now, I can't see all of you. I'm not sure what the final number of you is here, but I'm attempting to stay focused on the screen. So at least if I can't see you personally, you can see me, which makes me open and trustworthy. Did I include everyone in my language? I endeavored to do so with my greeting, and I'm trying to as we talk. Do you feel included? I will only know that if you send that comment to Safira. I will know if I made you feel included. And then when I get that feedback, what might I need to change? What could I do differently next time? So these are always very, very important questions to ask ourselves before an event and after an event. And I hope that helps you. Safira, coming back to you, just seeing if we have any questions.
No questions at this point, only just appreciation for you, Jenny. All of the things that you are sharing are very helpful and are really resonating at this point. So no additional questions right now.
All right, so now thank you for that. Let's get on to what we've been promising, and here they are at last. So I have an expression that I frequently use, and that is your brain connects in action, and you can speak about everything you know until you stand up in front of an audience. And that's often what happens to us. We are great authorities on topics, but sometimes we get up, or even in this situation, sit and go to speak, and all the words will fly out of our heads. We get very, very confused. So I want to make sure that I've given you some skills that help you with presenting. This might look a little self-serving, but this Prisk principle is what's on the back of my business card, as I mentioned to you earlier. The Prisk principle was suggested to me that I use it when I teach by a young man who was my intern for 12 months. And he said to me, I'm going to teach this and I'm going to call it the Prisk principle. So because he decided it, he's 25 years old, I decided that I would adopt it. So the P stands for putting your audience first, which is what I've done on this webinar. 2 hours is quite a long time to instruct, but nothing is more important in my world this morning and right now, or this afternoon or evening, wherever you are, than you. So you are coming first. I am thinking about what you want, as discussed with Safira. What did Safira suggest to me that you wanted, and how can we put you first? So do that with your audiences. They will love you for it. Remember also, when you speak, you are the authority. You are in charge. Before I spoke to you, I inhaled confidence and I exhaled any anxiety. I got rid of it. It's not relevant. All I want to do is be confident with you. I've shared my passion. We've addressed this many, many times. Share yours. And keeping in the moment means don't second guess yourself. So that's the summary. And let me move on, because I will explain this a little further. This is how you want your audiences to be feeling about you on every occasion. It is a mixed audience of races, cultures, men and women. So when you put your audience first, research them and remember what they're there for. The WIIFM, what's in it for them. Focus on their needs, not yours. If you talk about yourself, make the stories short so that they illustrate a point but move on. Focus on the benefits that they're looking for. Today, I hope that you're leaving with tools that you can use immediately. The wonderful thing about communication is generally when you've finished a Zoom session, you go straight away to talk to somebody, or you phone them, or you're talking on Zoom. Utilize the skills. Focus on benefits, move inside their heads. And then what will they say about you when you're finished? Will they say, that was useful, that was informative, that was exciting, that's changed my mind, that's persuaded me? Or will they say, I could have gone to the dentist in that time and that might have been better. I could have had a root canal. And I know that's how a lot of people feel about public speaking. They'd rather have a lot of heavy dental work than get up and speak to an audience. But you want to be thinking about the end result. Let me look at another element here. And if you'll just forgive me here for a moment. I just need to send a quick message. I'm not on email while I'm talking with you, but Safira and I had to have a question about a comment, and so we've just exchanged it on our phones. You are the authority when you speak. You've been asked to speak because the information you've got is very, very important. Always remember that. If you're asked to speak at a United Nations session, then you're there because you're the expert, because you have experience. Always say to that to yourself, all the way to your Zoom camera, or when we're back to the real world, all the way down those giant corridors in those buildings, because I've been to the commission 6 times at New York, and I understand, I know you may not always be in the UN building, but I know that you are closely connected. Now, grounding yourself, I'm doing it again. That's back to feet firmly planted, the string on top of your head, whether you're seated or standing. Extremely important to feel supported. I call it eye connection, not eye contact, which is the usual word. We use contact, but I'll take my glasses off and I want you to watch how my eyes are moving around the screen right now, which is what I see a lot of speakers doing, and it's very, very distracting. When you're in the room, make up to, or even if you've just got a few people on Zoom, make direct eye contact with the camera, because that helps all your audience to feel as though you are talking individually to them. And the question was asked, how do we hold attention? That's how, one of the ways we hold it, with that eye connection, with smiling, with sharing some humor, while looking as though you are enjoying yourself, as though this is a pleasure and you'd rather be nowhere else in the world. By speaking in their language, by hearing them, by answering their questions, as Safira and I are working on throughout this presentation. I mentioned the gestures. Now you can see them. And these are always open palmed gestures, because when you open your palm, you are telling the world and your audience you have nothing to hide. And they're strong, and you're sharing all your abilities and all your knowledge. And I've mentioned many times the importance of speaking slowly and clearly. Your voice is your logo. It brands you. How many of you phoned someone, and if your name hasn't come up on your phone, as it usually does, but they just say, hi, Devon, hi, Safira, hi, Carlos, because they know instantly it's you. My mother always knew when I was upset about something, because I'd say, hi, Mum, and she'd say, oh dear, what's wrong? So our voices indicate our health. It is our eyes are the windows of our soul, and our voice, no, I've got that wrong. Oh, and I've forgotten what the expression is. Our eyes are the window, and the voice, oh my goodness, that is terrible. That's the first thing I've forgotten. Maybe somebody can look that up and post it in the chat box. But the voice is the connection that we make. We're the only animals on earth that have a voice. So it's extremely important that it be healthy and strong and vigorous and sounding confident. So I hope that helps you. And I'll come for any questions in just a moment. As I said, this is the I in Prisk. Before I speak, I take 3 deep breaths and exhale all the anxiety. I won't do any more than 1 because it's a little overwhelming on Zoom. Then I do horse lips, and this is going to look so crazy, but this is what allows you to speak clearly. I go 3 times before I speak. That loosens up my lips. It looks thoroughly ridiculous, but it makes my face relax, and it helps me to look animated. And then if I have a quiet voice, which unfortunately I don't, I've got to be very careful to keep mine quiet. If yours is quiet, do some ha, ha, right from your inner person. You do these before you go and speak. You find a quiet space, you go to the bathroom, you go around the back of the building, but you do them, and the whole time you do them, you find yourself laughing because you feel a little silly, and that helps you to relax before you speak. So that's the P and the R and the I. Here's the S, sharing your passion. I just put this one picture on here because, as I mentioned before, passion is your enthusiasm, your excitement, your engagement, the way you will enlighten your audience. It's all those things. If you're not passionate, they cannot be. When you're passionate, it's like striking a match and lighting a flame. You then ignite the passion in others. And I just want to give you this final one, then I'm going to come back for questions and the elevator pitches and any final comments. Keeping in the moment. Now, I've learned over the years that speakers often try to second guess their audiences. And by second guess, I mean, if their audiences are sitting there, perhaps with their arms folded, they're not showing any emotion or any expression, the speaker then starts running a tape that says, they don't like me. They don't like what I'm saying. They wish someone else was speaking. They don't like the way I look. They don't like the sound of my voice. And we start running I'm sure everyone's guilty of it. I know I was in the early days of my business. Usually you are completely wrong. And they're listening to you, but the audience doesn't necessarily sit there smiling. They do when you share some humor, which is always extremely important. So don't second guess them and say they don't like you, because they may well do. Quick example. I think it was the second year of my business. I was speaking to about 50 people. There was a gentleman, I can still tell you what he wore, but that's not relevant. He was in the third row from the front on the aisle. He sat with his head down and his arms folded through my entire 30 minutes of speech. I started focusing on him mentally. I started trying to win him over by addressing him specifically, and that didn't work. I just thought, well, I guess he didn't like me. I have to live with that. At the end of the speech, who was the first one who came up to me? And he said, Mrs. Prisk, that was probably one of the best speeches I've ever heard. Now, it was a lovely compliment, but I had no idea, and I was guessing. He was listening, because people respond visually. They look at you. People respond with an audio response. They like just to listen, and they don't need to see you. They're learning through your voice. And the third are the kinetic learners, who are all over the place with the people around them saying, oh, I agree with that, or I've done that, and they're very active, and we think they're restless, but that's actually how they process. So we need to go in and speak with remembering all these things about our audiences. Don't let those negative messages take over your mind, because once they do, it's curtains. You may as well go and sit down. So don't let the wrong thoughts filter through your speech. And do stay focused on the audience, on your topic, on the benefits, on the speed, the pace, on your gestures, most of all on that engagement of your audience. And that's how you will keep them. Now let me see with Safira if there are any other questions or comments, please.
Yes, okay, so we have a few questions about speaking. So one is, how do you ensure that you speak with confidence without appearing to be intimidating or seeming aggressive? I think this is something particularly that can be quite gendered, you know, with women who are very confident being told that they're pushy or they're aggressive. Another question is, if you need to refer to some notes during your presentation, how can you manage that by looking at the camera as well? So managing notes, especially when you're online and in this Zoom environment.
Right, yes.
What are some tips for maintaining a slow and calm attitude during a presentation which is on a very strict time limit? So
yes.
a pacing question there. Then we have a couple around bias. So one is there was a presentation made on domestic violence. And during the presentation, there were some stats given that both men and women are victims of domestic violence, but then some stories were shared about women. And there was feedback from some of the men saying that this was bias. So is there a way to kind of correct perceived bias in some of these presentations?
Yes.
And another one probably around perceived bias is, as a man speaking about menstruation, any tips on that?
Excellent. These are amazing questions. Two quick things. We have, according to my books, 5 minutes left. I can go longer if that's permissible.
That should be fine. We can go a little bit longer, maybe not too much over time, but that would be fine.
All right, and I'll be quick with the responses because I do know there were also the elevator pitches and we'll have to see about those as well. Let me go back to being confident and not sounding aggressive, all right? So while I believe I'm going to do these as quickly and directly as I can so that we can cover them all. The being direct and being strong are extremely important for those who identify as female, because the world isn't fully equal. We need to look and sound equal. I'm going to go back to it. When you smile, it softens your tone. It says, I am approachable, I am friendly, and I'm not here to get you. I'm here to share with you. So it's really the smile. I've had the privilege of working with all male groups when I'm providing training, and sometimes there's 12, 15 men in the room and me. And I can see that they are not sure about spending perhaps a full day with me while I'm training. I break the ice. And as soon as I break the ice with them, they can see I'm strong, but that I plan to have an enjoyable experience. So that's what's important. I hope that answers you and helps you there. How do we stay? The notes was the next one I got. Now, I'm writing notes about the questions Safira is giving me. And I told you, I said, if you see me writing, I'm writing these down. When you tell a Zoom audience what you're doing, they don't think you're leaving them. They don't think you're looking at your phone. Just explain it. The other thing I do is I have a stand beside my laptop, and I've got notes on there for this presentation, although mostly I don't use notes, I just speak ad lib, but the notes are right to my right. So I'm looking at them now, but I'm still staying pretty focused with you. So it's all right if you can have them close, but just tell the audience, I wanted to be sure to cover everything correctly today. Bear with me while I refer to notes. And the minute you tell them, they all understand. So that's the easy thing with notes there. How do you stay calm when there are time limits? Do that breathing. It will keep you calm. And while you're speaking, remember to keep taking deep nose breaths. Just as I did then, that inserts a pause into the presentation and allows me to maintain my strength. See how I'm doing another one now? Now I'm speaking on the exhale. Plan always to get to the point quickly. The less you say, the less the audience has time to get upset. Speak as I am speaking now. I hope that helps you. All right, that's that one. Bias and menstruation. I would say that how you could address that, and we do know that men also suffer terribly from domestic violence, as well as women. You could state, well, first of all, if your audience is going to be mixed, and you will have researched your audience, so you should know that, then get statistics on both. If that is challenged, that you present them only on women, then explain that to the audience. Say, I spent some time doing research on the statistics, and fortunately or unfortunately, the greater number of stats I could get were around the effects on women, or the number of women who had suffered from DV. Therefore, but I would like to take your email, I would like to take your address, whatever, your phone, and I would like to research that further, because you're making a very good point, and I'd like to get back to you on what I've found. You can also poll the audience if you can risk it. If it's a huge audience, be careful. If it's a small audience, say, is there anybody here who could offer statistics on this situation? But it mostly goes back to the beginning. Research your audience. If you know it's going to be mixed, get stats on everyone. I hope that helps there. Men nowadays can address menstruation as easily as women do, except I know that not all males have reached that state of comfort. I remember when I was teaching at the Jaraja School for Girls in the heart of Kenya, and I taught them business development, the founder of the school and one of his males had to drive into the nearest town, Nanyuki, and pick up menstrual products. And when he came back, they had boxes shoulder high and they were schlepping them from their vehicle into the school. And there was no shame, no embarrassment. It was a fact of life. We wouldn't have children in this world if we didn't menstruate. It's just the most natural topic. And in fact, the more men are aware of it, the further the plight of girls who can't go to school because of the menstrual difficulties and the period difficulties, as we're calling them, the more you speak about it, the greater the chance of success at school and through education it is for young women. I hope that answers them all. And I think that was in 5 minutes.
Jenni, you're right on time. We've come right to the end of our time together. And really, I wanted to say thank you so much for your generosity and sharing your expertise with us today. I know people usually pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for your insight and your wisdom, and really your warmth and your encouraging tone and the dignity and wisdom that you've shared with us today has been so enlightening, and you're getting a lot of appreciation in the chat. I did want to say, I understand that you're doing another event during the Commission on the Status of Women. Do you want to share some of those details with us in case anyone would like to join that session that you're doing?
Oh, certainly, I'll do that. So put these back on again. For some reason, it makes me feel I can see you all better if I have my glasses on. So I'm presenting on March the 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right? So March 17, 1 p.m. It's called Virtual Presentation Skills, Women Speak Up. And I'll be covering, I believe it's going to be 90 minutes, and I'll be covering more particularly public speaking skills, as we've touched on today, going more in depth with them, even more. So I would love to have any of you join us if your schedule permits. That would be wonderful.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jenni. So if anyone's interested in that, it will be on the NGO CSW virtual platform. So make sure that you register for that if you would like to join. There has also been put in the chat the next 2 events for the Youth Leaders and Young Professionals chapter, which will happen next week. One is a film screening on Wednesday of a film called Glimpses into the Spirit of Gender Equality, which is highlighting the efforts of young people at the grassroots to advance gender equality. And the other is UN advocacy training. So anyone who wants to get the ins and outs of what is happening with the outcome document, the processes of negotiation, and how you can participate, that will be an event to join. So I'm going to wrap us up here. You're welcome to continue putting contact details and comments in the chat. And I'd really like to say thank you so much to all of you for joining us today. And really to Jenni, thank you for such a well put together and thoughtful presentation to address many of the questions that have been posed to you from our youth leaders and young professionals. So much appreciation.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you all for joining, attending, participating, for your questions, and especially thank you, Safira, for working with me and collaborating to get this online. It's been an absolute pleasure. And if any of you still have elevator pictures that you'd like me to look at, perhaps you post them and I'll review them for you, and I can always send them back via Safira. But thank you and namaste.
Thank you so much, Jenni.